Caterer goes ballistic when he realizes I'm engaged, forces his way into my bedroom to steal my dirty underwear, and breaks in the next night. Welcome to Storytorium, where the madness is contagious and the stories flow so sweet. Won't you grab a seat and join us? You're in for quite a treat! My fiancé and I threw a dinner party one time to celebrate his mom completing chemo. I hired a caterer. We were expecting 25 friends and family, so it was more than the kitchenette of our single-story ranch house could handle. We'd also only just moved in, so we didn't have a lot of cooking staples. The caterer said he'd bring everything 75% done, but he would need to finish off some of the dishes in our kitchen. I told him that was fine, as long as he was finished by 5 o'clock, because the kitchen is centrally located and we'd prefer everything be finished before the guests arrived due to the intimate nature of the occasion. He said that would be fine. He arrives as scheduled at 12 p.m. We gave him until 5, and the guests aren't even arriving until 6, so it's plenty of time. He smelled like actual dog crap. But his accent sounded European, so I thought maybe he just didn't believe in deodorant? It was more than a sweaty smell, though. He smelled like a sun-baked diaper. And that made me uneasy, because he was going to be preparing food for sick prior and young kids. I just made sure he washed his hands, and then left him to his own devices, worrying I was being too presumptuous. Throughout the entire process, he keeps pulling me aside and asking me questions and having me taste things. I was super busy because my husband had to work during the day and pick up the surprise guest right after. So setting up the deck, decorating, putting together slideshow equipment, coordinating the surprise guest, we flew in her sister, and I had to make sure she got an Uber at the airport and her hotel had worked out, etc. And just a million other little details. So every 10 minutes being asked things like, "Do you prefer with paprika or without?" "With is fine, whatever you think." "Tasty to be sure," was getting old. When he was still there at 5:45 after 2 gentle reminders, I flat out told him I needed him to completely be out by 6, no matter what. He apologized and said there had been a delay because our oven wouldn't stay up to temperature. I had never had a problem with our oven, but I figured he's a professional. Maybe it was a subtle problem. A little before 6 rolls around, a few of our friends start trickling in. I decide to tell him whatever's done is done, and whatever isn't, he should just put in the fridge. But he's nowhere to be found. I go out on the deck to ask my friends if they'd seen him, and he's out there, alcoholic beverage in hand, out of his chef whites, now in a t-shirt and jeans, mingling with my friends. I walked out just in time for him to introduce himself to my cousin-in-law as a good friend of mine. Nope. Too weird for me. I met him in person for the first time barely 6 hours ago. I told him he needed to leave. Now. So he goes inside and gets his bag and makes a beeline for my bedroom. I'm taken aback. I say, "Excuse me, where do you think you're going?" And he says, "To change." So, first of all, we have a guest bathroom clearly visible. Second, why can't he wear a t-shirt and jeans home? I tell him I'm not comfortable with him going in my room, but he insists it'll only be a second and goes in and shuts and locks the door. I couldn't even get a word out before he went in, and I felt helpless. I was going outside to ask one of my friends to help me usher him out, but at that point my fiancé got there with my aunt-in-law. I had to explain the situation to him, nearly in tears at this point, and he was like, "What? He went in the bedroom? Why?" So he pounded on the door, and the caterer came out, still in a t-shirt and jeans. And my fiancé said, "You shouldn't be in there. You need to leave." And the caterer said, "Excuse me, but this is not your house. It is not up for you to decide." And my 6'4", 260-pound fiancé tells him, yes, actually, it is his house, and puts a hand on his back and guides him to the door. The caterer says, I thought FranticSledder lived here. And he says, yeah, my fiancé lives here with me. And the caterer goes nuts. He turns to me and screams, you lied to me, you witch! I have no clue what he's talking about. He starts yelling about how I let him on and calling me a witch some more. I don't know who he thought the man in the pictures with me around the house was, so my fiancé says, oh no, you won't talk that way in my house. Find the door. And the caterer goes in the kitchen and starts throwing trays of food out of the refrigerator onto the floor. At that point, my fiancé realized 2 of his brothers, both currently offensive linemen at the college level, had come in and were on the deck. He signaled to them, and they came inside, and he basically said, this guy is harassing FranticSledder. Since they're a family of all boys, and my fiancé is the first to get married, they don't get to flex their protective muscles too often, and jump at the chance to toss this guy out. The party went on as planned, but I insisted we order pizza and throw out all that food he made. My fiancé and friends kept saying, isn't that a bit much? But I was insistent. We went out late drinking with his brother. We got home around 3:30 in the morning and passed out in our room. Around 5 a.m., I was woken up to the sound of the door opening. I figure either we forgot to lock the door in our drunken stupor and it blew open, or one of his family forgot their keys or something in the house and didn't want to wake us up. His parents and his local brother have a key. But his parents never, ever let themselves in when they know we are home. And his brother had had even more to drink than we did, and was definitely not awake and driving around at 5 a.m. It wasn't nearly windy enough for the door to have just blown open. It had been tranquil all night. So I woke up my fiancé and whispered, someone just came in the house. And he said the same thing. Probably my brother left his wallet or something. I figured I'm being paranoid and try to put it to rest when I hear a loud crash sound. With that, my fiancé was up and on his feet in one swift movement. He told me to lock myself in the closet and call 911 while he went out and looked around. As I was pulling out my phone, we hear a distinct accent. FranticSledder, hello? And I realize it's the insane caterer. I'm not worried about this caterer physically overpowering my fiancé, or me for that matter, so I charge right out there. The caterer is shirtless and clearly on something. He's taking the pictures that are just of me off the wall and holding several of them in his arms already. He lunges toward me when he sees me. My fiancé gets between me and him, and I call 911. Fiancé tells him cops have been called and it's in his best interest for him to get off the property. Caterer says, no! I have to make sure FranticSledder is okay! And I say, what? Why wouldn't I be okay? And my fiancé rightfully says not to engage with him and feed into it. My fiancé stays between me and him while I climb out a window. He watches as the caterer throws photos of us on the floor. Fiancé didn't want to subdue or touch him in any way, so the caterer couldn't make any assault claims. He's begun to destroy our kitchen at this point, and when the cops come in, he has a butcher knife. My fiancé considered going for the gun safe when he first got the knife, since we live in a stand-your-ground state, but he decided the situation was hectic enough without introducing a firearm. Caterer does not obey police orders to drop his weapon, and he says he isn't leaving without FranticSledder. So they tase him. It's lucky for him he only got tased, and he didn't antagonize my husband into squashing him. As he's let out in cuffs, he's shouting how he and I are in love, and it figures I chose a macho thug over a sweet, sensitive artist like him, and all women are sluts, etc., etc., etc. He continues on this tirade the entire time police are reading him his rights. The police ask us to do an inventory of the house and see if anything's missing or damaged, besides what we witnessed him do. We go around and there's nothing, but then I remember that he was in our room yesterday and go through the room. All my panties from the dirty laundry hamper were gone, and my personal lady thing had been moved from where it's usually kept. We were so freaked out in the aftermath that we replaced all our kitchenware, toothbrushes, sent our sheets to be professionally cleaned, and had a cleaning crew do a deep clean on the whole house. So glad we decided not to serve the food to our guests and my fiancé's medically fragile mother. The caterer sent me a letter from prison that thankfully my husband intercepted because I was still recovering from the whole thing. We gave it to police, who helped us get issued a no-contact order. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison 5 years ago, so he's out by now, but thankfully we did not meet again. Thank you for joining us today, and we do hope you enjoyed your treatment. We'll see you next time at Storytorium.